The 2JZ GTE is arguably one of the most notable engines that come out of Japan, but is its legendary strength really that great, or is there a hidden weakness often overlooked? Now, before we jump into any potential weaknesses, let's cover some of the 2JZ GTE basics. The 2JZ GTE was developed by Toyota with maybe some help from Yamaha. It was the successor of the 1JZ GTE. The 2JZ GTE is a twin-turbo, 3-liter, dual overhead cam inline 6, engineered and designed for a much more modest power level than what these engines have been pushed to with extensive aftermarket support. But what makes this engine so willing to swallow up all the boost thrown at it without failing? Is the iconic 2JZ hiding a secret weakness, or is it truly bulletproof? Let's take a closer look and see what this engine is really about. In stock form, with only a few mods to increase the amount of air and fuel you can cram into 2JZ's 6 cylinders, these engines have reliably put down 700 to 800 horsepower, with some more adventurous tuners pushing the engine to 4-digit power levels, which, contrary to popular belief, leads to a few S-shaped rods or a windowed block. For the simplicity of this video, let's take a look at 3 horsepower ranges the 2JZ is typically tuned to provide: 450, 700, and 1000. At about 450 wheel horsepower, the 2JZ is extremely reliable. This power level would be typical of a BPU setup or a very small single turbo setup. The likely area of concern for a setup like this would be the twin turbos if you're still using them. The iron block of the 2JZ is barely breathing hard at this power level. Once you start nearing 700 wheel horsepower, the 2JZ starts showing some of its weaknesses. At this power level, you'll be using a mid-size single turbo setup and an upgraded fuel system. You'll likely be using aftermarket cams at this point, which, depending on how high of a lift you chose, you may have made the OEM non-interference engine into an interference one. With the interference design, you'll now want to beef up some of the components relating to the engine's timing to ensure those pistons do not kiss the valves. This means tack welding the timing gear, as well as upgrading the timing belt tensioner bracket to a stronger billet design. These mods will ensure the timing belt stays put and will keep the engine spinning happily. At this power level, you might as well upgrade the crankshaft damper pulley, as the OEM one has been known to separate and fail if worn out. At this power level, a properly routed catch can setup should be added to the engine to ensure the crankcase pressure is minimized to prevent blowing out the front main seal. Once you've committed to 1000 horsepower and higher, you really find the weak link in the 2JZ's design, which is the stock connecting rods. At these power levels, a fully forged rotating assembly with thicker piston rods, wrist pins, and upgraded assembly hardware is a must. At this power level, you will also start seeing the OEM bearing caps start to give out. Upgraded versions should be in your build recipe for peace of mind. To provide this level of power, the stock intake may start to restrict the intake airflow, and a higher flowing aftermarket option should also be considered. Overall, as you can see, the 2JZ can provide a great deal of power with mostly OEM parts. It's not until you start getting closer to the 4-digit horsepower levels where the 2JZ's weaknesses from the factory really start to show. And if you're curious as to what makes the 2JZ so strong, check out this video.